The year was 1942. The airfield was a frozen pasture near the Caucasus Mountains, lit only by the occasional glow of a hand-rolled cigarette. There were no sleek metal fighters here. Instead, there were the Polikarpov Po-2 biplanes, wood and canvas crop dusters held together by wire and hope. Nadia the Owl Volkov sat in the open cockpit. The temperature was minus 30 degrees Celsius. She didn't have a parachute. They were too heavy for the little planes. She didn't have a radio. She had a map, a compass, and 2 50-kilogram bombs slung under her wings. The stagnant descent taking off in a Po-2 was a lent, slow affair. The engine, a meager 100-horsepower plant, coughed and spluttered as it struggled to pull the plane into the thin, freezing air. The cruise speed was so slow that a fast car could nearly keep up with them on the ground. "Do you feel it, Nadia?" whispered Galina, her navigator in the rear seat. "The wind is stiff tonight. It will be a long crawl to the target." Nadia adjusted her goggles. "Slow is better, Galina. If we were fast, they'd hear us coming. Tonight, we move like shadows." The silent glide as they approached the German encampment, a massive supply depot fortified with anti-aircraft. Flak guns. Nadia did something that required nerves of steel. At 3 miles out, she reached over the side and cut the engine. The world went deathly silent. The only sound was the lent, ghostly whistling of the wind through the wire struts of the biplane. This was the signature of the witch. By gliding in with engines off, they became invisible to acoustic detectors and thermal sensors. To the Germans below, the only warning was a faint whoosh-whoosh sound, like the flapping of a giant bird's wings or a witch's broomstick. The duel with the dark. They were dropping lower, the plane descending at a lent, agonizing rate. Nadia could see the glowing embers of the German campfires. She could see the outlines of the trucks. The anti-aircraft crews were awake, but they were looking for loud, fast bombers. They weren't looking for a wooden kite drifting on the breeze. "Target at 12 o'clock, Galina whispered. "Steady. Steady." Nadia gripped the manual release lever. Her hands were nearly frozen to the controls, but she didn't shiver. She held the plane in a shallow dive, the ground rising up to meet them with terrifying slowness. Clack! The 2 bombs fell. Because the plane was so light, it bucked upward the moment the weight was gone. The fire and the flight. 2 seconds later, the depot erupted. A massive fireball turned the snow-covered field into a landscape of flickering orange and black. The German searchlights snapped on, frantic fingers of light stabbing at the sky. Nadia reached for the ignition. The engine was cold, the oil thick. Chug ... cough ... chug. 4-5 terrifying seconds. They were a sitting duck, caught in the beam of a searchlight. Flak fire began to tear through the fabric of their wings. Finally, the engine roared to life. Nadia banked the plane hard, diving toward the tops of the frozen trees. The Po-2 had one advantage. It was so slow and maneuverable that the fast German Messerschmitts couldn't shoot it down without stalling their own engines. The frozen dawn. They drifted back to the airfield 3 hours later, the wood of the wings riddled with bullet holes. As Nadia climbed out of the cockpit, her face was white with frost, her flight suit stiff with ice. She didn't wait for a debrief. She walked to the fuel drums to help the ground crew prep the plane for its next sortie. They flew up to 18 missions a night. A young mechanic looked at the shredded canvas of her wing. "You nearly stayed up there tonight, Owl." Nadia looked up at the moon, which was finally setting behind the mountains. "The sky is lent to us for only a few hours a night," she said, her voice raspy from the cold. "We just make sure we use every minute." The war eventually moved west, and the night witches became legends, the only female regiment to be decorated as guards units. The Po-2 planes were eventually retired to museums. But for the German soldiers who survived the Eastern Front, the sound of the wind through wires remained the most terrifying sound in the world, the sound of the lent wings that came in the dark.